Thank you for watching another episode of Devar Malchus. This from "And I shall build there for them in a miniature Migdash sanctuary. This is the house of our Rebbe in Bavel." This regarding the central synagogue and study hall of Lubavitch in Lubavitch 770, referring to 770 on Eastern Parkway in Crown Heights. This on page 343, the last section of the fourth book of Devar Malchus. On the verse, "And I shall be there for them in a miniature Migdash sanctuary in the land that they have come to, and also outside of the Holy Land and the lands that they have come to in this place in the time of exile, there is a miniature Migdash similar to the great Migdash in Yerushalayim, second to the base of Migdash. It is brought in the Gemara by Rabbi Yitzhak that there are these synagogues and study halls in Bavel, and that the Rabbi Eliezer said, this is the house of our Rebbe in Bavel. And when we say that Rabbi Yitzhak and Rabbi Eliezer are not arguing, for also according to Rabbi Eliezer, all the synagogues and study halls in Bavel are also called miniature Migdashes. And according to Rabbi Yitzhak, the main and complete phenomenon of the miniature Migdash is in the house of our Rebbe. The title our Rebbe referred to as such since he teaches Torah to disciples, and the house of our Rebbe, the house in which the Rebbe teaches Torah to his disciples, is a study hall. And naturally it is also a house of prayer, a house in which the rabbi and disciples gather for prayer, since learning and prayer needs to be in the same house. As mentioned in the continuation of the Talmudic passage, I would learn Torah in a synagogue. Moreover, an additional virtue in the synagogue, the house of study, the house of our Rebbe, in regarding to the rest of the synagogues and study halls, as expounding of the sages what the meaning, what is written. Hashem loves the gates of Zion more than the Migdashes. Sanctuaries of Yaakov, Hashem loves the great gates noted for the Jewish law more than the synagogues and study halls. From the day the base of Mikdash was destroyed, Hashem is not found of anywhere in his world but in the 4 cubits of Jewish law. For in the time that the base of Mikdash existed, there was the Lishkas Hagazis. From there were decisions in Jewish law came forth to the Sanhedrin, in which the sanctuary or the Sanhedrin is surely present. And now the base of Mikdash is destroyed, those 4 cubits of Jewish law, a permanent place from where instruction goes out to the people of the city, and therefore also the prayer is in the place specifically. And this is the content of the house of our Rebbe. And due to the special virtue of the synagogue and study hall, the house of our Rebbe, in relation to the rest of the synagogues and study halls in Bavel, indeed, it is the main miniature Migdash that Hashem gives the Jewish people in the time of exile in the place of the great Migdash in Yerushalayim. And when we bring proof that there are different levels of the miniature Migdash from what it is written in the beginning of the Talmudic discussion about the dwelling of the Shekhinah, which the Jewish people are in the time of exile. In every place that were in exile, the Shekhinah was with them. They were in exile to Egypt, and the Shekhinah was with them. They were exiled to Bavel, and the Shekhinah was with them. Where in Bavel, Abai says that in the synagogue of Hatzal, in the synagogue of Shav Yisiv, in Nahardua, and do not say in both at the same time, rather sometimes here and sometimes there. The innovation of the Shekhinah is with them. Also in exile, the revelation of the Shekhinah, special places in the Migdash and Mishkan and Migdash, and this place this place is in a synagogue and study halls, which are called minor sanctuaries, like the continuation of the Talmudic discourse. And according to this, we may say that in the continuation of the words of the Gemara, were in Bavel, the synagogue of Hatzal, and in the synagogue of Shef Yisiv and Nahadu, special synagogues in Bavel, speaking about the revelation of the Shekhinah in a higher manner, that the revelation of the Shekhinah in the rest of the synagogues and study halls, a place that is recognized that it rests there. Moreover, there is a special place, one and only special, which is in the place of the base of the Migdash in Yerushalayim, the place Hashem shall choose, in which it is the main dwelling and revelation of the Shekhinah, and therefore do not say it is both at the same time in the synagogue of Hatzol Zal and the synagogue of Shaf Yisisuv Yisiv in Nahadua. I hope I pronounced those correctly. Rather, sometimes here and sometimes there, in one place specifically, and this is emphasized in the name of the place, the synagogue of Shaf Yosiv in Nahadua. The meaning of Shaf Yosiv is that the Migdash traveled and settled there, meaning that the revelation of the Shekhinah, which was in the Migdash in Yerushalayim and not another place, traveled and settled in a special place in Bavel, in a place of the Migdash in Yerushalayim. And from this it's understood that also regarding the miniature Migdash and the continuation of the Talmudic discussion, that in addition to the general phenomena of the miniature Migdash, in all synagogues and study halls in Bavel, there is a main miniature Migdash in the place of great Migdash in Yerushalayim, the house of our Rebbe in Bavel, and the Migdash traveled and settled there. Moreover, and mainly the special virtue of the miniature Migdash of the house of our Rebbe also continued and was advanced vigor and greater strength, even when they were destined to be redeemed with then, as mentioned further in the Talmudic guest courses discussion, the synagogue study halls in Bavel are destined to be relocated to the land of Eretz Yisrael. The dwelling of the Shekhinah in every place that the Jewish people were exiled, the miniature Migdash in the lands that they have come to, similar to the dwelling of the Shekhinah and the Migdash in Yerushalayim, is only in the time of the exile. However, once they will be redeemed, the revelation of the Shekhinah will be returned to Yerushalayim, and it will not remain there in a place in which Jewish people were once exiled to, meaning that the dwelling of the Shekhinah will not be in a place out of the holy land upon which stood a mini Migdash, since the mini Migdash will be uprooted from its place and be relocated to the land of Eretz Yisrael in a big Migdash in Yerushalayim, and therefore they say that the Migdash that had time to come, that in the time to come, the base of Migdash will be the size of Yerushalayim of today, since the Yerushalayim that is destined to be built in the future will have in it the synagogue areas that are now attached to the Migdash, as alluded to the verse, and it will bring them my holy mountain, and I will take them happy in my house of prayer, and will call for all the nations that my house of prayer, referring to the future base of Migdash presently in exile, it will be called for all nations, meaning that the synagogues that are in the lands of the nations will be relocated in the future of the lands connected to the base of Migdash. And based on this, indeed, there is another virtue in the greatness of the miniature Migdash, that since in the Yerushalayim that is destined to be rebuilt in the future, we will have in it all the synagogue areas now attached to the Migdash, indeed now in exile. A synagogue that is an actual place of the Migdash of the future, when we say the binding of the synagogues that from all the lands of the nations, the miniature Migdash to the Migdash of the future will be in according with the different levels that they are on. The special synagogues that have a special virtue over other synagogues that have a special virtue over other synagogues. The synagogue of Hatzol and the synagogue of Shaf, the Yasiv in Naharda, the house of our Rebbe in Bavel, will be the first in their union with the base of Migdash that will be literally attached to the base of Migdash, touching and connecting to it with no separation between them, and there will be the connector of all the synagogues, the lands of the nations, to the base of Migdash. And when we say furthermore that the future base of Migdash, which is built and prepared and will be revealed and descend from heaven, will be revealed first in the place that Migdash travels and settled there in the time of exile, the house of our Rebbe in Bavel, and from there it will be relocated to its place in Yerushalayim. And the dwelling and revelation, the Shekhinah, and the main miniature Migdash in Bavel, the Migdash traveled and settled there, is also when they will be redeemed. And is explained the continuation of the Talmudic passage that even when they will be redeemed, the Shekhinah is with them. As the verse says, and Hashem, oh your God, will return your captives. It does not say he will return them, rather he will return to each us that Hashem returns with them, meaning with your captives from the exiles. In other words, also in the last moment of exile, the Shekhinah is found where the Jewish people were exiled. The Migdash travels and settled there, and from there Hashem returned with all the Jewish people to the Migdash in Yerushalayim to dwell and reveal his Shekhinah in it forever. And since Hashem returns with them from the exiles, from the miniature Migdash, the house of a Rebbe in Bavel, the Migdash traveled and settled there. Indeed, in this place where it begins and transpires the redemption of the Shekhinah, its revelation in its full intensity, not only in a matter of miniature Migdash, which this is the phenomenon of the future Migdash. In other words, just as the return of the Shekhinah is from the place that it was found in exile, likewise the return of the future Migdash, whose concept is the dwelling and revelation of the Shekhinah, is from the place that the Migdash traveled and settled there in the time of exile, and there is where it revealed first, and then it relocated to its place in Yerushalayim. And we must possibly say that this is alluded to in the words of the Rambam, the law of King Mashiach, that he will build the Migdash in its place, and seemingly that is necessary to tell us where tell us here that the building of the Mikdash is in its place. On the other hand, why doesn't it say the actual place? And he will build the Mikdash in Yerushalayim, only in his place. Hence, also to the place of the king Mashiach in the time of exile. Therefore, before indeed he is Mashiach, being beyond doubt, meaning that when it is in exile, there where he sits and waits, anticipating to redeem the Jewish people and the Shekhinah from them, and the Shekhinah with them from exile, King Mashiach builds a miniature Mikdash, which is similar to the Mikdash in Yerushalayim, like the synagogue of Shaf V'Yisiv, and the Mikdash travels and settles there, and is preparation for the future Mishkan, which will be the revealed there first, and from there it will be returned with Hashem and the Jewish people, Yerushalayim. And when we add in explaining the virtue of the house of our Rebbe in Bavel, that its advantage over the synagogues and study houses in Bavel, in addition to the synagogues and study halls and the aspects of the house of our Rebbe, also due to being the house of our Rebbe's hand defined of all the Jewish people, leader of the generation, are our Rebbe in Bavel, the leading Rebbe of all the leading people of the diaspora, the house of the leader of the generation, in which the leader is everything. The main phenomena of the dwelling of the Shekhinah is in the Jewish people due to the virtue of the Jewish people. The Jewish people and Hashem are one, as the verse says, and they shall make a Mikdash for me, and I will dwell among you. It does not say in it, rather in you. And likewise regarding the dwelling of the Shekhinah in the time of the exile in Bavel, where it is in the synagogue and miniature Mikdash is emphasized. And the beginning of the passage, come and see how precious the Jewish people are to Hashem, and wherever they were exiled, and the Shekhinah is with them. Moreover, the revelation of the Shekhinah is the base of Mikdash, is because there were all the Jewish people there to gather together. As the verse says, when the Jewish people came to appear before Hashem, your God, in the place that he will choose, and similarly in synagogues and study halls, where 10 Jewish people gather, for the Shekhinah dwells upon every gathering of 10 people. And this is the reason that the synagogues and study halls that are in Bavel are called miniature Mikdash, since the base of Mikdash, in which all the Jewish people gather, the entire Shekhinah was revealed, which is called Knesset Yisrael, the source of the Jewish people down here, whereas the synagogues and study halls in the lands that they have come to in each and every country and city to which the 10 Jewish people gather, only a portion, so to say, of the Shekhinah is revealed. And based on this, we may explain the virtue of the house of our Rebbe in Bavel, that since the permanent place, house of the leader of the generation, leader is everything, who includes the entire generation, it has in the dwelling and revelation of the entire Shekhinah, not only a part of the dwelling that is revealed upon 10 Jewish people, similar to the dwelling and revelation of the Shekhinah in the base of Mikdash, which the Mikdash travels and settles there, and from it is drawn forth and dwelling the revelation of the Shekhinah in all synagogues and study halls in the lands to which they came, like the base of Mikdash, from which the light goes out to the whole world. And when we say that the house of the leader of the generation, who includes the entire generation, is similar to Tal Pois, Tal, mountain, mount that all pious mouth turn to, and his exposition of the sages regarding the base of Mikdash, more and mainly the virtue of the house of the Rebbe in Bavel regarding the redemption. Rebbeinu, the leader of the generation, is also the Mashiach, the redeemer of the Jewish people of the generation. Like Moshe, the first leader, the first redeemer is the final redeemer, as known that in every generation there is one person befitting his righteousness to be the redeemer, and when the time comes for Hashem, he will reveal himself to him and send him. And it is reasonable to say that the leader of the generation is clearly written in the Talmud regarding Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi Rav, and if he is from those that are alive, the candidate would be Rabbeinu Hatakadosha, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the leader of the generation. And from this is understood the main central voice of the house of our Rebbe in Bavel is the redemption from Bavel through the empowerment from the general service of the Jewish people to make Bavel outside the land and into the land of Israel, as known the expression make here outside the land Eretz Yisrael. With this is accomplished first and foremost through building synagogues and study halls, a miniature Mikdash in the land that they came to, and from them the holiness is drawn throughout the land and the nations, and through this we hasten to accomplish the fulfillment of promise. Eretz Yisrael is destined to spread throughout the lands, and that the entire world will then be on the level of Eretz Yisrael now, and Eretz Yisrael will be on the level of Yerushalayim as of now. And this is meant that when the Yerushalayim will be spread over the entire Eretz Yisrael, which is the synagogues and study houses of Bavel, will be set to connect to the Mikdash. And since the main aspect of the house of our Rebbe's in Bavel, in gathering together all the synagogues and all the study houses in Bavel and set them in Eretz Yisrael connected to the base of Mikdash, indeed it is not only the main miniature Mikdash in Bavel, the Mikdash traveled and settled there, rather also the actual piece of the Mikdash of the future, that it will be revealed in the future Mikdash, and then from there they will return to Yerushalayim based on this, we may explain all the above regarding the house of the Rebbe in Bavel. In our generation, the house, synagogue, and study hall of my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, leader of our generation, and by way of preference, there is the saying of my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, that Lubavitch was exalted 10 times from Lubavitch, where there was the revelation of the inner dimension of the Torah in a comprehensible manner. He will gain sustenance from it through the Chabad Hasidic teachings for a few generations to the Rostov, from the Rostov to Petersburg, from Petersburg to exile to out of that country to Latvia, and then to Poland until the American exile, and in America itself in the number of places until the permanent place of the house of our Rebbe's, his synagogue, the study hall, the center of Lubavitch for the last. Everything follows the conclusion, 10 years, a complete time period of my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, leader of our generation, of his life in this world, and also following his passing. Holiness does not move from its place. Moreover, in a manner of holiness, we ascend, continuously adding until the coming of the righteous Mashiach. And similarly regarding the Jewish people in general, that in our generation, the mass majority and main communities of the Jewish people are in American exile, and we say that this is the reason for the fact that also the leader of our generation, which is the leader is everything, lives in the present 10 years of the American exile, from which there was the occupying and spreading Torah, Judaism, and disseminating the wellsprings of Hasidus outward to all other countries that the Jewish people came to through his students and emissaries throughout the world. And being that every place that they were exiled to, the Shekhinah is with them. And in this final exile, the majority of the Jewish people in the main communities, together with the leader of the generations, are in the American exile. Indeed, the Shekhinah also went to the American exile within the American exile itself, within the Bavel itself, where in the miniature Mikdash of the base Rabbeinu, which is similar to the synagogue of Hatzula and the synagogue of Sheikh Yasiv in Naharda. The Mikdash traveled and settled there in the place of the Mikdash in Yerushalayim, and from it, the dwelling of the Shekhinah is drawn into the synagogues and study halls throughout the world. And when we say that, the explanation of this being that in the generation, the last generation of exile, and the first generation of redemption, we complete our deeds and service through the time of exile to make the land of the nations into Eretz Yisrael, even in the lowest of the lands of the nation, the lowest hemisphere, where the giving of the Torah did not take place, which through elevating the lowest place, we elevate also the other places of the land of the nations, and the phenomena is accomplished through the house of our Rebbe in the lowest hemisphere, which from it light shines to the whole world, to make the whole world, even the most far-flung corner of the world, into Eretz Yisrael, which this is the phenomenon of Eretz Yisrael, is destined to spread throughout the lands, and the Yerushalayim is destined to spread to the entire Eretz Yisrael, in which will be set all the synagogues and study halls for the whole world, all connected to the base of Mikdash, in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach Tzedek Keinu, the leader of our generation, who is also the Mashiach, redeemer of the Jewish people of the generation. Moreover, also important that he is the leader of the Hasidic teachings, through spreading them outward, spreading the wellsprings outward, including the outmost, that there is no further outward than it, through the entire world, we accomplished the coming of King Mashiach. Based on this, the great virtue of the house of our Rebbe is understood. The main miniature Mikdash in the final exile, the Mikdash traveled and settled there, and therefore it is in the actual place of the future Mikdash. Moreover, will be revealed in the future Mikdash. From there, it will be returned to Yerushalayim. And when we add that this is alluded to in the name of the house of our Rebbe in our generation, Rabbeinu, his two names allude to the redemption. His first name, Yosef, name 2, correlating to the verse, and it shall be on that day, Hashem will Yosef, once again, an idiom of Yosef, stretch forth his arm to acquire the remains of his nation, and will remain from Asiya, from Egypt, and from the lands of the ocean, and Asaph gather, and lost of Israelites, and the dispersed Yehuda he will gather from the 4 corners of the world. And his second name, Yitzhak, named so in correlation for the laughter and joy, which is complete in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach, as the verse says, that our mouths will be full of zak, laughter. Then specifically the time to come when we will say to Yitzhak, specifically, for you are our father, the house of our Rebbe. It is addressed in 770. The number became the name of the house of our Rebbe, is called by all the Jewish people 770, which is the number in the numerical value of Ratza, in correlation to Euphratza, and you burst forth in the east, in the west, in the east, the north, and the south, which alludes to the fact that from his house shines His house light shines forth to all four directions of the world in a manner of breaking boundaries, that all four directions of the world will rise up to the level of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is destined to spread to all the lands, especially and including that all the synagogues and study halls throughout the world are relocated to Eretz Yisrael and connected to the base of Mikdash in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach, about whom it was said, Paratza Elecha Paretz, empowered you to spring forth, and our sages explain that this refers to Mashiach, as the verse says, at Poretz, one who breaches rose up before them. And when we connect both of these, the allusion in the content of this number 770, the house of Rabbeinu, with the first name of Rabbeinu alluded to in the verse, Hashem will Yosef again his hands. The number 770 alludes to the completeness of the number 7. 7 in each one is included in 10, a complete number 70. Furthermore, of each one is included in 100. 10 times 10, 700, including the union of both as one, 770. And the significance of this, the number 7, is connected to the existence of the world that was created in 7 days, the 7 days of building, 7 attributes, and the connected to the refining and world through the service of the Jewish people that are divided into 7 types, 7 levels as godly service of the Jewish people, the 7 attributes and the 7 branches of the menorah. And based on this, the perfection of the number 7, 770, denotes the completeness of the service of the Jewish people in refining the world through our deeds and service throughout the time of exile, which then they are redeemed from exile and returned to Eretz Yisrael. And in the wording of the verse, which this is alluded to, the connection of the first name of Rabbeinu and redemption on this day. On that day, Hashem will Yosef once again stretch forth his arm to acquire the remnants of his nation that will remain from Assyria and from Egypt and from Paras and Ethiopia, from Elim and from Shinar and from Hamas, and the redemption of the Jewish people from the 7 lands, and the verse says, and from the lands of the ocean, which refer to the lower hemisphere, which through elevating the lowest automatically all the lands are higher than it. All 7 lands, the world in general, are elevated. And when we say that the completeness of the number 7, 770 alludes 770 hints also to the completeness of the service of Rabbeinu throughout the days of his life, 70 years of service, 70 from 5740 to 5640 to 5770, including the completeness and perfection of his service in 70 years in the lowest hemisphere, 70 in the 10 years in the lowest hemisphere from the house with the address 770, including also the connection of the service of the years after through the 7th generation, and all 70s are cherished, through which the completeness of our deeds and service throughout the time of exile in the 7 lands of the world. And immediately Hashem will once again Yosef stretch forth his arm, and Asaph gather the loss of the Israelites through the phenomenon that Paratza, numerical value of 770, Elecha Paretz, empower you to spring forth. Poretz rose up before them. And regarding the above, the additional special emphasis has been added in the recent time. The service is spreading toward Judaism, and the well springs outward from base Rabbeinu 770 continues to get stronger and stronger even after the last 10 years in his life in the world. Moreover, 40 years, 5710 to 5750, in the manner of Hashem gave you a heart to understand, eyes to hear, eyes to see, and ears to hear. Hence, base Rabbeinu 770 is Tal Pious. A Tal mountain is all pious mouth returned to for more than a jubilee of years, 5700 to 5750 forever. And this is an emphasize even more upon seeing before your eyes the continuous addition of the number of the Jewish people that come to the house of Rebbe. A vast nation glorifies the king also. Who are the kings? The rabbis, especially the king of our generation, that there has come to be a need to explain base Rabbeinu, yet further including expanding in a manner of breakthrough, Paratza, numerical value 770, like the building of a new house. And based on the above spoken regarding the great virtue of the house of Rebbe in Bavel, that the Mikdash travels and settles there, is actually the place of the Mikdash in the time to come, to the extent that the future Mikdash will be revealed in it. From there will be returned to Yerushalayim. We understand the great merit that each and every Jew and Jewish has taken part in the body of and their money, and more and better in building the house of the Rebbe in Bavel as preparation for the descending and revelation of the future Mikdash, literally immediately. And this is a timely manner, the year of Tzaddik, 90, as emphasized in 90 Palm of Tehillim, for the year which begins. Hashem, you were in a dwelling among us, to be there for us in every generation, referring also to the synagogues and the study halls, and concludes, the pleasantness of Hashem our God shall be upon us, the work of our hands shall establish us, referring to the dwelling of the Shekhinah in the Migdash and Mishkan. In the Mishkan and Migdash, rather. And may it be the will of Hashem that even before the expanding of the house of our Rebbe's in Bavel, the future Mishkan, the future Migdash should be revealed and descend from heaven, the Migdash that your hands, O Hashem, have established, the third and trifold Beis HaMigdash, which includes also the Mishkan, first and second Beis HaMigdash, that will be revealed in the house of our Rebbe's in Bavel, which is also a trifold, threefold house, a synagogue, prayer, study hall, and a house of gold deeds, acts of kindness. And from there we will return to Yerushalayim together with all the synagogues and study halls throughout the world that will be relocated to Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim, connected to the Mishkan, and together with all the Jewish people from all parts of the world, as the verse says, and bring them to my holy mountain and make them happy, my house of prayer. For my house is a house of prayer, and it may be called a house of prayer for all the nations. The temple mountain of Hashem will be magnificent, standing on the most exclusive of the mountains, and be yet more exalted due to the hills surrounding, and all the nations will stream to him, and many nations will go, and they will say, let us ascend to the mountain of Hashem and the house of God of Yaakov, and he will teach us his way, and we will go on his path, and from Zion the Torah will emerge, and the word of Hashem from Yerushalayim. New Torah insights will come from me, literally, immediately. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Tomorrow Malchus. Good of luck. Shavua Tov, Zygabach.